Thanks. Mr. Robichaud. So you have said that the police will be more willing to write tickets for teenage marijuana possession than they would have been to light criminal charges. And as a result, in the process of legalization, what in fact is going to happen is far more charges will be laid and prosecutors will be more inclined to seek convictions. If you could help me understand that.
Just hold on. Let me get Senator Rain's question, and then I'll get the answers.
Well, my question really would be...
to who?
To, guess, Mr. Robichaud.
Okay.
Just what amendment would you propose that would deal with this issue of the problem with the youth?
Okay. So we've got two questions, and Mr. Robichaud, they're to you.
So with respect to the ticketing, as I understand the legislation, it does not actually allow youth to be ticketed. When it's over 5 grams, it automatically triggers the criminalization and the whole process that goes with that, which comes to your question, Senator Rain, and that is, I think we need to really reevaluate what it means to be labeled a criminal as a youth and be prosecuted under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. At a very minimum, to reach asymmetry and an inevitable and successful constitutional challenge, it needs to be raised to 30 grams. But I think we want to put serious consideration into broadening that and recognizing all the very important principles within the Youth Criminal Justice Act and even the purpose of this legislation, that this is not to, as Mr. Freeman has put it, victimize the victims. We need to do other things to keep them out of the system, and whether that's by increasing the minimums or doing better education. I'm not sure exactly what the answer is, but the answer is not to criminalize them for something less than their adult counterparts and to then permanently stigmatize them for slight deviations later on. I think that's a really dangerous road.
Mr. Friedman, and then I'll go to the video.
Yeah, there's a very simple amendment that can be made to this legislation, and that is under Section 51 to change the wording from an individual who is 18 years of age or older to simply to any person. And all of a sudden then youth fall within that, and if the ticketing regime is to have any benefit, the youths can have the benefit of that. They can have the benefit of having no record or a record held separately from other judicial records. But right now, to me, and when I've read this, and I've read this legislation a number of times, and the legislative summaries and the commentaries, I cannot for the life of me understand what the possible argument is to deny youths access to the ticketing regime. It simply makes no sense.
And Mr. Conroy and Professor Boyd?
I agree with the previous two speakers, and I'm delighted to hear that there is a section in the Ontario legislation that we could use to put in the Cannabis Act in terms of the role of parents and guardians in relation to alcohol, and I've told you already in terms of tobacco. So I think that's the way we have to go. You had a witness last week, again, Mr. O'Soup from Saskatchewan and the Indigenous community, who expressed severe concerns about ticketing and so on going on in that community. And so, again, you can buy as much booze as you want in the liquor store and take it home. You don't have to lock it up on the way home, and you don't have to keep it in a locked box at home, and the same with tobacco. So given my experience over all these years with people in the cannabis industry, frankly, I think the 30 grams and even the 150 grams in the medical model is frankly ridiculous. But I appreciate that unlike us criminal defense lawyers or those of us who have had experience in the criminal justice system and who still think, I say naively, that heavy penalties and so on are actually going to work, that's what we have to overcome, is to realize for tobacco it's 1 to 2 year max. The same with alcohol, and Ledane recommended a 5-year max. So we're over the top, and we're going to cause problems if we enforce it. I like Professor Boyd. I think a lot of it is smoke and mirrors in order to make sure the bill gets through. This is the 4th or 5th time we've come up to the brink of passing legislation that would ameliorate cannabis laws.
Final word, Professor Boyd.
I think the point made by Mr. Robichaud is a very important one. The approach taken is entirely inconsistent with the Youth Criminal Justice Act. That's been a very important piece of legislation, and this approach is very much at odds with that legislation.
Well, thank you very much to all 4 of you for giving us all your thoughts about it. It's been most helpful. And with that, committee members, we've come to the end of this meeting.